Look, I spent 20 bucks on a formatted laptop from a thrift store, and within 10 minutes, I had the previous owner's social security number and every single deleted photo they ever took. This isn't some one-off fluke, mate. It's a fundamental flaw in how we perceive digital ownership. I'm taking you into the reality of ghost data, the bits of your life you thought were buried, but are actually just waiting for some script kiddie with a basic recovery tool to find them. This is the starting point of our descent into the cybersecurity lie we've all bought into. Think about it. You head down to a local shop, pick up a dusty Dell or some beaten-up MacBook, and you assume that because the screen says welcome, the past is gone. But, well, quite literally, you're holding a digital cadaver that still has stories to tell. Most people think of a hard drive like a chalkboard, where you can just wipe away the mistakes of the past. In reality, it's more like a massive library where you've simply torn out the index. The books are still on the shelves, you just don't have the map to find them anymore. When you hit delete, or even when you perform a standard format, the OS doesn't actually scrub the physical sectors of the disk. That would take too long, you see, and tech giants know you value speed over actual security. Instead, the drive just marks that space as available. It says, sure, you can write something else here later if you want. Until that happens, your tax returns, your private messages, and those photos you'd rather the world didn't see are just sitting there in a state of digital purgatory. It's a bloody massive oversight that we've been conditioned to ignore. For $20, I didn't just buy a piece of hardware. I bought a stranger's entire identity. And whilst you might think your data isn't worth much, look, on the dark web, these fragments are the primary currency for identity theft and extortion. It's a forensic nightmare that shouldn't exist in our modern era. Yet here we are, trading our privacy for the price of a cheap lunch. It's daunting when you realize that your digital footprint is less like a path in the sand and more like a scar on the hardware. Once it's there, it's nearly impossible to truly heal.
Which actually brings us to the greatest magic trick ever performed in Palo Alto. You see, Silicon Valley sold you this brilliant fantasy. They called it incognito mode. It's the ultimate comfort blanket, right? A digital reset button that promises to wash away your sins like sand on a beach. You see that little icon, the one with the fedora and the glasses, and you feel this momentary sense of relief. But look, let's be cynical for a moment. If your data were truly the worthless trash they claim it is, well, companies wouldn't be spending bloody billions to build server farms the size of small cities just to house it. You have to ask yourself, why are they hoarding what they tell you is disposable? The truth is, incognito is nothing more than a cosmetic UI change. It's just a bit of clever front-end paint, designed to hide the fact that the telemetry harvest is still happening, quite literally at the kernel level. Now, whilst your browser might not remember your midnight rabbit hole into the darker corners of the web, your operating system certainly does. Your network adapter does. Your ISP definitely does. It's a forensic trail that bypasses the user interface entirely, you see? We've been conditioned to believe that clicking a button labeled delete actually removes bits from a physical platter. In reality, that data is rarely destroyed. It's simply de-indexed. It's moved from the shelf to the basement, but the house still knows it's there. And what about the much-hyped right to be forgotten? It sounds noble, doesn't it? A legal safeguard to purge your digital existence. But in the world of big data, it's just a PR curtain. When you ask a tech giant to delete your data, you're often just losing access to the index of that data, whilst the raw packets remain buried in deep storage, waiting to be fed into an LLM or a predictive algorithm 3 years down the line. Look, we're living in a state of permanent recording,
where the delete button is a psychological placebo. It's daunting to realize that the industry isn't just tracking what you do, but they're tracking what you think you've hidden. But look, that's not even the craziest part of this digital panopticon. Because to understand why they want your trash so badly, you have to understand the ghosts that live inside the hardware itself. You think when you move a file to that little recycle bin icon and click empty, that you've actually achieved a clean slate. Look, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but you have done nothing of the sort. To understand why, you need to grasp the actual architecture of memory. I mean, imagine your computer as this massive library. When you delete a file, the operating system doesn't run into the stacks and incinerate the book. It just walks over to the master catalog, rips out the index card, and pretends the book isn't there anymore. The book, your data, is still sitting right there on the shelf, perfectly readable for anyone who knows how to find it whilst the librarian is looking the other way. Now, on a modern SSD, the process is even more convoluted. To actually scrub those raw bits, the drive has to physically overwrite them with new information. In a world where we all have massive amounts of storage we rarely fill, that discarded data can sit in a state of digital purgatory for months. It is bloody massive, this graveyard of your past self, and it's just waiting for someone with a bit of technical know-how to come along and dig it up.
But here's the kicker. The real danger isn't just a stray photo on some discarded laptop. It's the trash metadata. Think about the messages you typed out and then deleted because you thought better of them, right? Cynical. Or those sites you visited in private mode. Warning. You might think those vanished into the ether, but they are frequently scraped into what the industry calls shadow profiles. Dark. This is where cybersecurity takes a dark turn into the world of identity synthesis. Look, data brokers and dark web actors are no longer just looking for your credit card number. They are collecting these discarded fragments to build a high-resolution blueprint of your subconscious mind. By using techniques like credential stuffing, they can take a leaked password from some site you haven't used in 5 years and use it to brute force their way into your current life. Dark. They are essentially stitching together a digital voodoo doll of your personality. They know what you almost said, what you were afraid to search for, and what you think you have hidden. You are leaving a breadcrumb trail of your deepest vulnerabilities for the highest bidder, all whilst believing you have a clean slate. But as daunting as that sounds, it is only the foundation. Because once they have the blueprint of who you are, the next step is to figure out how to manipulate where you are going. And that is where the real nightmare begins. Look, we've been conditioned to believe in this myth of the digital eraser. We click delete, we empty the trash, and we feel that momentary sense of relief. But in the world of cybersecurity, that feeling is a dangerous lie. You see, that button you're pressing is nothing more than a placebo, designed to give you peace of mind whilst the servers keep right on humming. See, when you delete a file, you aren't actually scrubbing the data from the drive. I mean, you're basically just telling the system that the space is now available for rent. Until something else moves in, your most intimate secrets are just sitting there in the dark, waiting for a simple forensic tool to knock on the door. Honestly, it's like putting your sensitive legal documents in a clear plastic bag and leaving it on the curb. You've thrown it away, sure, but everyone walking past can see exactly who you are and what you've been doing. Look, this is the transparency age, and the verdict is daunting. Your privacy isn't being stolen. You're throwing it away in that transparent bag. If you aren't using hardware-level encryption and zero-knowledge protocols as a standard, you leave your front door wide open for whoever wants to control you. Think of zero knowledge as a vault, where even the company that built the vault doesn't have the key. Only you do. Without that layer, your digital waste is just a gold mine waiting to be excavated by the highest bidder.
You have to realize that in this ecosystem, nothing is ever truly gone. It's just waiting to be found and indexed. Stay sharp, mate. I'm showing you the tools you actually need to secure your digital waste before it becomes someone else's leverage. Because at the end of the day, the only person who should have the kill switch to your identity is you. So, tell me, what's the one piece of data you thought you deleted that would haunt you if it surfaced tomorrow? Let me know in the comments. And if you're starting to see the cracks in the digital utopia, you might want to subscribe. Stay cynical.